And you're very welcome to the Racing Room with AK Bets after an extremely sad weekend for everyone involved in the sport, for everyone who loves the sport, and especially for those who were close to Mikey O'Sullivan after his passing late on Sunday. Everyone will be aware of the extent of the injuries he suffered after a fall in Thurles. He was in Cork University Hospital since then, with very little news, but it was confirmed over the weekend that he had passed, 24 years of age. For those of you who may not be aware, he won the Supreme with Marine Nationale, running for Barry Connell. Personally speaking, I met him a few times. An absolute gent, very bright guy, willing to give his time, very much a family guy. And at 24 years of age, there are no words to describe how upset everybody is. And look, I guess, AK, when things like this happen, I put it up in a WhatsApp group when he had the fall, and it looked very serious. But you hope for the best. When something like this happens, it really just makes you sit up and think about what's important in life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like you say, when it happened, I wasn't in the office, and our WhatsApp group between the staff members just said that was a really bad fall. Lads talking about racing being delayed, but then it was fairly evident fairly quickly that it was a pretty bad fall. I think just the no news. You're always hoping, but for some kind of positive update, but no news was probably telling some kind of story as well. It's just really sad. I suppose you just think like I'm 37. What was I at 24? Sure, you'd done nothing. You'd achieved nothing, and this fella had achieved plenty, like way more than any other 24-year-old that I can think of, to be honest with you. And I think it's just like I didn't know him. I've never met him, but it's just when you analyze the whole story, it's just very, very sad. And I think it's hit Irish racing and a lot of people in Irish racing and the wider racing community. I think it's going to hit them pretty tough that someone so talented basically has passed.
Yeah, and somebody, with just such a brilliant future ahead, very clever guy. As I said, always just had time for people. And I think that's why when he won Supreme TC, there was just, obviously Barry Connell was a huge player on that day, but I think everyone was just really delighted for Mikey O'Sullivan because he is that kind of guy. And, the fall itself, you're just reminded, and sometimes, we give out about rides, we give out about horses and stuff. You're just reminded, how perilous this game can be, but for a lean left or a lean right, it's the difference between life and death sometimes. And this is just horrific to try and swallow.
We're all guilty of, going after jockeys when we think it's a bad ride. And hopefully this time it will last longer than a week, our memories. Because I was going through last night about the number of injuries we've had in recent years. There can't be many sports that are so dangerous for the participants, can there? And you go back to Freddie Talicki, most recently Graham Lee, Jordan Gainford had a bad fall at Haydock on Saturday. You've got Jack Kennedy still out with his 7th broken leg. And how old's he? Is he still in his mid-20s as well? And how much long-term damage is there? And it's kind of like it's just an incredibly dangerous sport. I mean, I wouldn't profess to know Michael, and I don't really follow that Irish racing, so I wouldn't really have followed him. But there seems to be a genuine outpouring of grief here, doesn't there?
Yeah, there does. And as well, I guess, even Harry, when you think of what jockeys do, and we were kind of discussing this over the last few days, you need complete confidence in your ability to navigate the animal underneath you, right? And an awful lot of times you don't have a lot of control on it, but you also just need supreme bravery and no doubt whatsoever that you are the best person equipped to deal with what's happening in front of you. And if that goes, by the way, and it's happened to jockeys in the past, what is there? What else is there? And I just was reminded that, but even a few guys over the last few years that have retired just because they just said, I don't have the heart to do this anymore. I don't have the nerve to do this anymore.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think a lot of jockeys get to the point where it's their nerve that goes before their bodies. But no, it's desperately sad, and it's a reminder. I think, as one of you said, a reminder that it's a very dangerous game, and that we owe a great deal to the men and women who are prepared to go and participate in it and keep it going. And there's not much more to add to anything that you boys have said, really.
Yeah, no, Brian Cooper springs to mind as well. And I would have spoken to him a couple of times about this as well, that he just couldn't get on a horse anymore, and he couldn't enjoy it. He was just, his mind was gone. And if you get to that stage, you have to make a decision. And look, Mikey as well, I know, like, his family, we're thinking of them most importantly, and everybody around him, but it'll take a long time, I think, before this settles in. And yeah, look, there's not much more we can say. I know, TC, that Joe Saumarez Smith passed away last week as well. It turned out to be very quick in the end for him, the chair of the BHA. So look, just a sad week overall in racing.
Yeah, it's we touched upon it last week, and there's been a couple of really good kind of like eulogies to Joe. Neil Channing on Nick Nut Daily. Go and have a listen to that last week, and there was a great letter from Eamon Wilmot in the Racing Post yesterday about his time with Joe. I probably should have known him a lot better than I did, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's we won't make any kind of like wider political points, but obviously his time at BHA, you'd hope someone as intelligent as him and as a doer as well as a thinker could have made a bigger difference at the BHA than he did. But God, when you read about him and what he did, and his educational history, his business history, he's just a phenomenal man, wasn't he?
I think the most extraordinary thing about him was his, and you only learn this after the event, really, his ability to unite, the likes of Neil Channing and Nick Goff on one hand, who clearly adored him, and executive level people in racing on the other hand, who also seem to really rate him. There aren't many characters that can be very close friends with both those sets of people. So it's one of those ones where you read all about him afterwards, and you think, God, I didn't know half of that. I wish I'd known a bit more. Like Tony said, I'd rather wish I'd known him.
Okay, right. Look, let's talk about the racing from the weekend, TC. And I said to you kind of just before we started recording, I didn't see a huge amount of it, but Paul Nicholls was in the headlines for an awful lot of good reasons. And I don't know, are things starting to turn a little bit for him, or maybe was this just a flash in the pan, do you think?
I think that would be a touch premature, but it obviously made a lot to him. Anybody saw the TV coverage after Pic D'Orhy won, the big Grade 1 chase at Ascot on Saturday, were left in no doubt that the fire's still burning there. But yeah, I mean, he's got a long way to go, probably years to go to actually get a team that he had, in his heyday. But yeah, he obviously meant a lot. We might as well deal with that now. I mean, the side issue there is that sounds like his principal buyer, Tom Malone, is going to take a back seat, and his daughter, Megan Nicholls, is going to step up to the plate and try to source some Grade 1 talent, which I don't envy her that, with like the stranglehold that Mullins has got on the French market, etc. But yeah, it was a little bit odd, some of the coverage on Saturday about with Megan interviewing her old man about,
like, editorially, TC, like, just from a journalistic point of view, is that not a bit strange? Like, why is that happening? And like, nothing against her or him, but like, if you're leaving yourself open to a lot of criticism just by virtue of the fact that she is interviewing her dad there, no?
Well, we've been down this path in recent weeks, haven't we, about the multitude of ex-jockeys, and we won't go into your situation again, but unwilling to kind of like criticise friends and past and current friends in the weighing room, but it did peak on Saturday, didn't it? I mean, obviously the big stories about Tom Malone not delivering on big money purchases for the yard, and obviously his daughter interviewing him. She's never really going to get into the nitty gritty of that, is it? So yeah, editorially it is clearly I mean, there is a situation in rugby, isn't there? Isn't the Welsh TV presenter Sarah?
Yeah. She's Sarah Elgin. She's
Yeah, so
married to
she's been
Easton.
interviewing. To be fair, she's been interviewing. The Easterby who runs the Irish team now. I've seen her some interviews there. So again, it's a bit awkward, isn't it, to say the least? But I mean, obviously Pictoria was a big win. Outside of that, it was a very quiet weekend. Golden Ace won the Kingwell from Burnett Road. Not sure whether they're even going to bother turn out for the champion hurdle. She's got the mare's hurdle. Good horse, Kitsball, one for Willie Mullins on Saturday. It sounds like they're going to go to Aintree there.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's been a very, very quiet weekend, really. Just check my notes to see if I've missed anything. There was a big Ferrari in Doha on Friday and Saturday. Their big Qatar's flagship race day of the year had to be abandoned after one race. Jockeys fell in the first race. One was hospitalised, so that had to be abandoned. So I don't think.
Is it just how is it so dangerous around the track there?
It sounds like all the jockeys were kicking up on Friday, but they said they sorted it. But when the English riders walked the track on Saturday morning, they said nothing has been changed. So I'm not sure we'll be seeing that clerk of the course ever again. And it was and it was kind of like transferred to a pre-training ground, and they held it there on Sunday, which is obviously a big embarrassment for all concerned. And the other big story about that meeting is Pierre-Charles Boudot, who has been suspended in France, hasn't ridden in France in 2021. He's had his licence revoked in November 2022.
Yeah.
He's up for allegations of rape. I think they're still going through, and he hasn't been licensed since, but the Qatari authorities issued him a 1-day exemption to actually ride on Friday and Saturday, which is, I'm not sure that's entirely satisfactory either. But
no.
Other than that, it was a very quiet racing weekend.
Yeah, it's not a great look, is it, considering everything that's happened? But look, they tend to do things their own way over there. Right, okay. As regards to Cheltenham, obviously, it's quiet enough at the moment because we're all kind of geared towards the festival. We've mentioned seemingly the slow ticket sales and the numbers not quite where Cheltenham want them to be, TC, but there seems to be a bit of a different tack to this story. In that the main restaurant at Cheltenham, which is normally kind of a hive of activity, is going to be closed for the biggest week of the year. What's going on here?
Before that, hasn't Anthony got some breaking news for us just in?
Are you on about
he's the chef at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
That's why they've closed the restaurant.
Yeah, food poisoning on the free road.
Food poisoning all round.
Sorry, I wanted to shoehorn in our AK Bets news that we are taking over the on-course betting shop at Listowel Racecourse. So we actually left the betting ring there at the end of last year, sold that pitch, and the opportunity came to take the betting shop basically at Listowel.
Right.
So previously occupied by Ladbrokes, will be occupied by AK Bets for a good while. A long-term partnership has been agreed there. And I suppose we're looking at other tracks as well. There's 5 or 6 tracks that I've got my eye on just in general. We're hoping to do some more things and been in touch with different people and trying to get involved in that game, I suppose.
I know there's no guarantee, but would that be a bigger cash cow than standing in the ring potentially?
It's hard to know. For us, I'd imagine we'll turn over more just because we'll have more things to bet on. Essentially, we won't just be betting on the races in front of you. Basically, we'll be betting on absolutely everything, akin to a high street betting shop. Essentially, we're going to try and blend some of that with some of our prices from online rather than generic prices and generic shop screens. One of the things I think a lot of the on-course betting shops do, and listen, it's probably not a priority for them or anything like that, but say a Ladbrokes betting shop would have on the racetrack in Ireland would have very generic to me they look like UK facing screens. It's not very tailored to the local market, and we're hoping to do a little bit more specialization, being a smaller company and being able to pivot and make decisions quicker. We're gonna try and mix it up a little bit and try and do it slightly differently.
What kind of, yeah, so obviously, like, it's an investment as well, but I know you like Ellistow, any excuse to get down to Kerry and live it up large there. So, like, you're going to, get a little apartment for yourself. You're going to have to be hands-on, aren't you?
I'll be definitely down there. I'd imagine. I'd say quite a lot of the office will be down there as well, to be honest with you. We really want to make this work, to be honest, because it's kind of listen, it's not going to be the biggest deal in gambling history, but it's kind of important to us because we want to showcase what we can do and use it to go on to other things as well. So it's going to be really important. It's going to be a real focus of the team here for the next few months to make sure we execute this right. And yeah, it was worth a handshake off Pat Healy to get the job done, because that man can crush a hand with a handshake, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, Pat's a big name in Kerry, all right. And I presume the red of Ladbrokes is going, and you're painting over with the black and orange of AK Bets, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have to mix it up here. We're gonna take down those tired signs from 30 years ago and replace them with something new, I think. Yeah,
lovely stuff. Right, TC, just on that Cheltenham restaurant, this isn't a mad story. I mean, we don't want to kind of harp on about the problems that they're having because everyone's looking forward to it, but like the biggest restaurant closed for the week.
This has been blown out of all proportions, actually.
Has it?
It was, someone contacted me and went on social media and said the third biggest restaurant at Cheltenham. Now, I had a look online and it didn't look that big to me. But anyway, so what actually happened here, the PR team from Jockey Club Racecourses got in touch with me on Thursday evening, said, are you available for a call now? So obviously I said, yes, please. So the guy rang me on Thursday evening and said, really nice guy. He was on the Zoom call that I had about the Cheltenham changes last year. But anyway, so he got in touch with me, said, listen to the show. Everyone in the industry listens to it, blah, blah, blah. He said, enough of the blowing smoke up your ass. Just clarify a couple of things. And one
blow away.
Yeah, what I was going to say.
Sorry. Could you repeat the bit about where you really liked what I said the last time?
Yeah. It was. I was quite annoyed actually because he was so pleasant and nice. I quite like when they come on and try and give it the big one and say, "Well, listen here." And obviously that tends to get my back up, and it doesn't tend to end too well for me especially. But anyway, so he actually said, let's just correct something about the festival restaurant. He said the festival restaurant is closing, won't be open for the 4 days, but it's nothing to do with demand. It's this turning into let me get my notes here so I don't get this wrong, turning it into a staff welfare area for the whole 4 days. Now, whether it was chicken and egg, I don't know, but he just said, no, it's being kind of like repositioned as the staff welfare area. So let's put that into context. And he said it wasn't a big restaurant; it held 120. But I think it probably underlines that they are really struggling to get numbers in. Now, obviously, I had him on the call, so I just said a lot of the conversation. It was quite a rambling conversation. A lot of it was kind of off the record. The on the record stuff that I could get about the restaurant, so happy to correct that. Like I said, it wasn't a big restaurant as such, but it's still held 120, and they're not filling it. And obviously they've redesigned that. And the other thing I was talking to him about was obviously the ticket numbers, pre-sales. I think reading between the lines, it's fair to say that there's some room for improvement in the sales area, but he just reiterated the fact is they never give a running commentary on sales figures. Never have, never will. Not sure I totally buy that because.
Yeah, but why? What's the downside to giving them?
If something is sold out, you're quite.
Yeah. What
so,
about it?
But yeah, I mean, he was a good guy, and it just goes to show that. Again, it was good of him to actually kind of like ring up and take the trouble. So at least we got some kind of audience in the upper echelons anyway.
If like we should be standing at Cheltenham this year on course on UK GC. Let's get it done. We should be on the track, but for me, like, we're one of the things that blows my mind just about the UK and bookmakers, and we're going to experience it for the first time at Cheltenham, is we have to be at the track at 8 a.m. at Cheltenham to take our pick for where we stand. Racing, I think, this year starts at 1:20, and we're staying about an hour away from the track. So we're gonna have to leave at like 6:30, get there for 8, get the pick, racing all day on your feet, the whole staff, the whole team. Be an hour or two after racing, I presume. Drive an hour back. It'd be like 8:30, and then we're back again.
Well, you've got to get out of the car park first, AK. That's going to take 3 or 4 hours.
Like, but like, that's why I'm quite interested in this staff welfare area, because I might be pitched up there on Tuesday afternoon till Friday morning, I think. Like, it just blows my mind that we have to get there that early, and we're literally might as well kip there, to be honest with you. Like,
so why does it have to be there so early? Like, what's
the great question. Listen, I'm not a UK bookmaker, I suppose, on the racetrack, so I'm not going to have much say, and might be commenting out of turn. But I don't know. Like, we've all got the internet. Like, surely this can be done remotely and agreed remotely each day with. I can show you random number generators and stuff like that if you like. Like, it's I don't know why everyone's there that early. It's bizarre to me. But yeah, like, I think one of us mentioned previously, and I don't know if it's possible with the tech and stuff like that, but saying, and I get the fact that it's a small restaurant, etc., but saying it's sold out is slightly, it's slightly disingenuous.
He did admit that. He did admit that was
Okay.
an oversight.
Yeah. So, but then just another thing. I spoke to a fairly significant player in the on-course market in the UK, and he showed him where the restaurant was on a map, and he was like, that will affect those 4 or 5 bookmakers, but even not that much. So he was like, it wasn't a big thing.
okay? All right, we'll keep an eye on it.
Just on a sec, another point is obviously Aintree is probably not going too well as well. There's been renewed offers over the weekend for half price tickets for the first 2 days, including Ladies' Day at Aintree. And a couple of people have been in touch on direct messages, as well as kind of like visibly on social media, and just said it's such a kick in the nuts for people who bought their tickets early, etc. It's all these. I suppose it's it's supply and demand, isn't it? I mean,
do you think they factored in that reaction, and that they know that coming down the line after the festival's over and they try and push early ticket sales, that they'll just get told to do them, basically?
Well, like I said, someone else contacted me and said he actually complained. He said they've got a big group going, and they got a decent response, and he just said he got 400 quid back on
really
for theirs. Yeah,
that's
just maybe it was a goodwill gesture. Say, look, a massive group of us go regularly, always go to this, bought early, and then I just, for 2 of the days I can get a half price tickets. And he complained, just sent them a nice email, and I think he got 400 quid back. So I'm not advocating everyone rushes onto Aintree and tries the same kind of like ticket, but it just goes to show, if you don't ask, you don't get.
I think we're all aligned here as well. Like, we obviously want these big, we comment on things that, even from a positive and a negative perspective, and try to provide commentary on them. But I think we all want the same thing. We all want a lot of people turning up for, especially the big racing. And if there are these offers and things like that, I'm happy to parrot them on here, to be honest with you, to try and get people to go racing. We've probably got quite a hardcore good few thousand people that download this podcast. So if there are any offers at any of these tracks, I'll happily share them out and try and get people to go racing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is what we all do, and this is our game. And just by the way, on last week, just for any confusion, there was a couple of comments about being seriously turned off because of where I was recording. Just to reiterate that I paid into a private lounge, told the lady at the front desk what I was doing, asked her permission, told her if there was anybody he needed to use the facilities to let me know, and I would vacate immediately. Just so we're clear. Okay.
I haven't eaten any food since my podcast thing as well. So
I tell you what, they're picky old bunch, the AK Bets Racing Room fans they are. Anyway, Grand National weights TC, it kind of passed over without much fanfare. Really, I saw Gordon Elliott. Gordon Elliott, I'd say, hates being interviewed. Silver Birch, of course, Gordon. You won the Grand National before you even had a winner in Ireland. So yeah, that's right. I told you that last year and the year before and the year before that, fucking year before that. And any new questions to ask me? But yeah, look, it's not a big deal. The weights. I mean, I don't know. People.
It used to be a big deal when they actually there was an Aintree factor and they had to adjust the weights for past performances at the track, etc. But no, it's not a big deal. They held it in Liverpool. Looking at the pictures, it doesn't seem like it was as grand and as it normally is. And it's kind of like, I think, like you said, the Grand National weights I think they might end up ditching it in the next few years because, like I said, there's no, Red Rum will give him an extra 12. Well, give him an extra £12 as what he's done at the track before, because it doesn't take a lot of. It doesn't take a lot of jumping now, and there was an extraordinary treat from the Sun's Callum Jamieson. I mean, you don't really get journalists actually coming out and saying what they actually think. I haven't got it to hand, but he basically just said, just rip it up and start it again. He was like, for a journalist who writes about racing on a red top, it was kind of like, I just thought it was really quite ballsy actually, and maybe all you three similar. I mean, the National has kind of lost its appeal. I mean, because
it really has.
They've had to really kind of minimise. You can never minimise. Well, you can never take anything out of the equation, but they try to minimise, any concerns about safety, and which obviously you can never do. But it's obviously taking away a lot of lustre and history from the race, isn't it?
It has. In the mid-2000s, when I was at university, I worked for Betfred at the head office in Warrington in a place called Birchwood, and just taking bets on the phones and stuff like in a call centre. And Grand National Day, the local pub that was literally next to the call centre was called the Silver Birch.
Really?
And they did their apps. There was a Betfred shop in the shopping centre. Oh my God, it did its absolute brains, like beyond, it was very funny.
I tell you what, it's a big deal when Anthony Kaminskis steps on the weighing scale these days, lads. That's a big deal. That is a ceremonial fucking big deal. I can tell you that much. Right, that's the Grand National. Yeah, it has. It's totally lost its luster. But look, we've been saying it, and this is what the race is now. So we just have to take it. Harry, can you explain what a lien is? Lean on me, brother. Lien. In the legal world, what is a lien? And should I be worried about several people putting liens on whatever I have left, which is nothing?
Yeah, exactly. You need something. You need to start with something of value. It's a right to basically withhold something as a result of being owed money, usually, but not always, in respect of the thing that you're holding. So a famous one is a mechanic's lien. A mechanic can hold onto a car until they're paid for work done to make the car better, to improve the car, basically. Yeah. It's slightly strange law. And it's quite old and it's quite boring, and there are different types of lien. You've got common law liens, you've got equitable liens, and I'm not going to go into all that. But basically, I think what we're talking about is the Rebecca Menzies news, which is that she seems to have sold a number of horses. What's the name of the racing club? I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'm going to
write it down, because a lot of them sound the same. The Racehorse Ownership Club, run by Steve.
The Racehorse Ownership Clubs, like Ron Sill, and except they don't pay training fees. So it's actually not quite like Ron Sill.
How do they come up with that name, do you reckon? Guys, we're putting together a racehorse ownership club here, and we're trying to
go onto one of those there's an internet website that can work these things out for you. No, it's anyway. So he under the standard terms of the National Trainers Federation, training contracts. I think it's actually clause 17. I had another look last night. It entitles a trainer to not only keep hold of a horse in respect of training fees, but in certain circumstances to sell the horse, pay themselves the training fees, and return the balance to the owner of the horse. So I suspect that clause 17 has been invoked. It has to be done quite carefully. Liens can go wrong, and you can get into all sorts of hot water if you mis-exercise them, because you've basically sold something that you had no entitlement to sell. Contractual liens are much easier to exercise because they set out exactly what you can do. And they do, as I say, the National Trainers Federation one allows trainers in certain circumstances to sell the horse. And the conventional wisdom is the way to do that is to put it through the ring to make sure that you're getting market value. You can prove that you've got market value and that there isn't any suggestion that you've undersold, you've undervalued the horse just to get the training fees and then, handed a paltry remainder back to the owners. So I think that's what's gone on here.
Yeah, pretty desperate measures. I mean, obviously for Rebecca, I mean, we've dealt with the story as well before, TC, that she obviously was, I presume, loath to do this, but I guess, feels like she hasn't been left with much choice, right?
Yeah, I mean, Anthony's got some stronger stuff on this, but I mean, he looked into some subsequent details we've got, but it's just a fair play to Rebecca Menzies for actually going public on this, because it sounds like a lot of trainers are in the same boat here about, you're getting knocked by syndicates, owners, full stop. In fact, someone got in touch with me because basically what she's done here, I mean, she was non-runnering any entries she made for the owners just until she got paid, which is fair enough. So fair play to her for highlighting that. Someone highlighted a higher profile trainer and a high profile owner where a similar situation may be going on at the moment, but what's that space here? But I mean, you looked into it, Anthony, didn't you? And you just couldn't see how this operated and where the money was going, where the money was, full stop.
I'm just working with pretty much what I've got in the public domain, to be honest, and I just don't understand. Like, if there's a syndicate, you buy the horse, you sell bits of the horse, and there's usually some money left over for whoever's running the syndicate. But those syndicate members seem to have been paying the person who was running the syndicate. So for me, you've bought the horse already. Like, for me, it's a very simple question. It's the same principles to me as the Rory Campbell stuff. To be honest with you, it's like there's money there. There's money coming in. Where's the money gone?
Where is it? Yeah,
you're not paying. Once there's training fees coming in for the people that you've sold the shares in. Where's that money? Like where's that going? Because it's not going to Rebecca. So
it's an area that is ripe for, not to say this has happened, but it is ripe for that kind of misconduct of money disappearing, because undoubtedly there is a culture in racing of late payment of training fees. A lot of trainers are under an awful lot of pressure to get paid basically all of the time, and that one of their sort of monthly nightmares is trying to get money out of their respective owners, and there aren't many that that go as far as to exercise liens for reasons of you're worried about what it might do to your reputation. Obviously, Rebecca didn't have an option in these circumstances, but it is definitely a cultural problem in racing as a payment of training.
Any idea, Harry, as to why that attitude exists? Like, is it just a kind of a general laziness?
I think it's probably always been the case, actually, Hugh. I think that it's a little bit, what's the old phrase about gentleman never pays his tailor on time? I think probably the same goes for trainers. It's just there's always that sense that owners do have quite a lot of, if you're responsible for quite a lot of a yard's income, you've got quite a lot of power over that yard,
Currently, gentleman never pays his tailor on time, so I don't know that one.
You're no gentleman, AK. That's the problem.
And he doesn't have a tailor. He doesn't have a tailor.
You can order the hoodies online, lads.
Okay, but look, obviously, it's a rough situation for Rebecca, but we'll see what happens over the course of time. Andrew Black, you guys and TCU in particular have spoken about the famous Andrew Black and a couple of humorous stories about him turning up, looking like something that's just walked in from Oscar the Grouch's garbage can. And I haven't seen too much of him, but I did see the picture that went with the suggestion he's made in terms of a betting improvement. And he really doesn't give a shit what he looked like, does he? He just doesn't care.
Like I say, if you're worth hundreds of millions, you can do what you want, can't you?
Yeah, you can, but if you're worth hundreds of millions, would you not make
I wouldn't
some
hold that
effort,
against
no?
him. I wouldn't hold dressing as he wants against him. In fairness, but
it's like just coming back to the last thing, isn't it? I mean, if they say if someone owes you 10 grand, it's their problem. If someone owes you 100 grand, it's your problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but it comes down to Randy. I mean, obviously he's back in the news now because he wrote something, or whether it was ghosted for him, about his idea.
About each way betting, right? So he's not a fan of each way betting. He thinks it's bunches of.
I've read it a couple of times, and I don't know what he's on about. He's on about kind of each way betting is bad for the mugs, but it's good for the pros. I just think it was probably badly written or badly ghosted. So
Badly communicated the idea.
I genuinely don't know what he's on about. If I was the Racing Post editor who was carrying it on my front page, I would have probably asked him to expand upon it or make it clearer, because what he seems to be suggesting was, in effect, a spread bet, and spread betting hasn't gone very well in recent times. It's probably, given these backgrounds, probably more one for Anthony to comment on, really. But
just briefly, he basically is talking about a kind of a merit-based return, depending on where your horse finishes from first to fifth. That your return financially depends on the placing of the horse, and that would, in his eyes, be a better kind of return, AK, than each way betting. I don't know if you have any strong thoughts on this or not.
I've probably a lot of thoughts on this, to be honest with you. I think it's a bad idea for a start.
Why?
Because customers and the UK and Irish population like to bet each way. It's what they've grown up with. It's whether you want to say it's mathematically not non-optimal. I think that's probably correct. As is the Rule 4 system, as are other things. They have anomalies in them. Each way betting would be the same. People don't care. Genuinely, people don't care. I think this would be a fine idea in a jurisdiction where everything tries and there's loads of prize money. I think that's probably it's more susceptible to a total monopoly jurisdiction where they haven't had the benefit of fixed odds betting. I think that's probably fine. But one thing that did strike me is all Andrew Black's ideas. And listen, the exchange is. I'm not one of these people that crows the exchange. I think it's brilliant. I think you can see a lot of things that you probably couldn't see prior to it. I think it's if there was liquidity, which is part of the big problem why this is, apart from people not wanting it, the lack of liquidity and affordability and how easily. One thing about Andrew's things is they're not very easily communicated to the mass market. The exchange invested a hell of a lot of money early on into education and trying to educate people to play on an exchange. It's not the mass market. A good example is I can stand at the track if I want to, and if the two bookmakers either side of me is 7-4 and I'm stood in the middle, I'm better off going 13-8 because people see 13 and 8 as bigger numbers than 7 and 4. That's kind of what you're dealing with. And I'm genuinely not being obnoxious or in any way there. A bookmaker told me a story at Cheltenham last year, I think, or the year before, at Allaho. He wanted to keep. He went 4-7. The two bookies either side of him were 4-6, and his first bet he laid was £7,000 at 4-7. And when the two lads next to him were 4-6, because people see 7 as a bigger number than 6. If you want to get your scales out and start doing performance incentive runs, I think one of the things that really did strike me as well was, if this is Andrew's second big idea after the exchange, both of his ideas are quite conducive to, unfortunately, quite conducive to skullduggery probably quite is one of the things that the scale of this nature would it wouldn't
So manipulation, in other words.
yeah, it wouldn't you'd be incentivized to run your horse further down the field. Like it's probably not where we should be going, I don't think. I think it's just a really bad idea just because people don't want it. Whether each way betting is mathematically sound or not, people don't want it. Each way betting is ingrained in the populations. People understand it, which is the bloody key here. People understand it and they know how it works and they're familiar with it. And this is I won't be investing in any.
I think for like just casual punters, the idea that you can back each way, which means if the horse doesn't win, you get something back, is quite a comforting thing. Like, but maybe I'm curious for you, AK. Like when you were pro punting, like did you have a view or a stand or a kind of philosophy on each way? Like, did you have certain rules around each way betting or winning?
Oh, 100%. Each way betting was literally most of what I did, to be honest with you.
Really?
Taking advantage of each way terms. Yeah, so he's right in that regard. Yeah, each way, people who say each way betting, as the people who know is a very, very profitable endeavor if you know what you're doing mathematically.
Yeah, but like it's a bit like playing blackjack. If you understand it and understand how to use it, great.
Yeah.
Is that right?
100%. Yeah. I had very few win bets when I was betting. Not on golf is one thing that we used to bet on. Golf quite significantly. Golf, horse racing, anything where there's anomalies in each way terms and standard each way terms, you can take, and then you obviously have the firms betting extra places, some of them, and worse prices, but there's certain spots there which are favourable as well. Mainly unfavourable, to be honest with you. That's why it's one of those things that there's two sides to everything. Like you see extra places. I think generally extra places are bad for customers. You tend to take out an inferior price for extra places, but it's kind of like the bet buildery type stuff. There's more margin built into that stuff. There are obviously plenty of spots where pros can pick it off, but as a general population, it's you'd rather the bigger price and to less places for sure. And in general, to generalize, I wrote my dissertation at university on bad each way races and their effect on favourite long shot bias. So I was well ingrained into each way from a very early age, to be honest.
I don't generally tend to kind of go each way on 4 to 6 short price doubles, but you, I imagine, must have a rule that you kind of work by in terms of price and when do you go each way or not?
It's the thing about this. The most feedback I mean I've seen to Andrew's suggestion. And there may be, I suspect, knowing Andrew, there's probably more to it. So it may well have legs. A lot of people just have responded and just say, look, let's just sort out what we've got at the moment. Thank you very much. I want a win bet and I want an each way bet. And a lot of the time I can't have it. So, let's just sort out what we've got first. Let's get our house in order before we go down this pool betting, tote betting route. Like I said, it's like I said, what we've got isn't working at the moment. So let's not add to those problems with complex solutions.
Is he a very clever guy? Just last thing on it, is he a very clever guy? And maybe like the message kind of gets lost in translation.
Tony, you know him, but like I don't know him. I've never met him. I'd say he's unbelievably. I'd say he's one of those people that are so far that you can't see down.
His grandfather was on the boards of hundreds of companies, and he and Andrew now he invests into, as does Edward Ray actually. What they call them, angel investors. They go down a lot of different paths with betting with kind of like business opportunities. Yeah, incredibly clever guy, and like I said, I imagine he wrote that or he spoke to some at the Racing Post, and it ended up with that article. I imagine in his head, it's 10 times more. Imagine to him, it was completely understandable and very clear, and it had total clarity in his own head, but it didn't seem to transfer to that article. But
yeah, like what I'd say is just on him, the last I read about him was probably in the Times maybe 18 months ago, and he was doing something around genetics and investing in some kind of genetics company or setting up his, like he's obviously unbelievably intelligent and looking at different things, um, even on a much smaller scale. Sometimes when I get quoted in the papers and stuff like that, and I read it back, and I'm just like, that's actually not what I meant. Like, so like it's you never know. You'd love to have the conversation with him, rather than seeing it in print, because even not on purpose, some of these things can get lost when you
listen.
to someone who
He
knows
wasn't. He
nothing
wasn't
about
giving.
it.
He wasn't given many words to explain it, was he? It's not. It's not. It's not a long
No.
article. He's got to do it in quite a short
Mm.
block there. And the other thing I'd say is that it ends with him just kind of going, "Look, this might not be something along the lines of this. Might not be the answer, but we should all start thinking
Yeah.
about how to do new things in betting." And I think that was probably the central gist, was that maybe one of the ways of getting people
My
going again is to offer new products. I think that was kind of the gist, wasn't it?
my big thing to get things going again and moving in the right direction is improving liquidity generally,
Mm.
and the big impediment to that is probably not product; it's probably regulation. I'd say.
We lost you there, okay?
Sorry, what was it? Improving liquidity? Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say just the big thing is improving liquidity, and I think the big impediment to that is not new products. It's regulation and the impact regulations having on the liquidity.
Okay. Well, who knows? I mean, if he was giving his views to one of the guys who runs the Twitter account in the Racing Post, I mean, Christ Almighty, talk about getting lost in translation. Hello, neighbor, and all that kind of shit. Anyway, look, we'll see. We'll see. Okay, quickly, TC, which is getting closer to fruition here? The new changing rooms for jockeys and the diverse male-female culture, or the website that's also going to take 48 years to build? Have we got any update on this?
Just very briefly, only 14 tracks had completed the 2021 initiative by the end of 2024. That was the original deadline.
Yeah.
There's been an update from the PGA last week, was very damning actually. And it sounds like some Jockey Club Racecourses tracks aren't even going to start this 2021 initiative until 2028. They're not entirely sure to have finished by 2030, which is just mind blowing, isn't it? I mean, some of
Look,
the
when there's no punishment, when there's no motivation for them to do it, or
No.
like equally no slap on the wrist, sure, why would they bother? Like,
it's like I said, if you read it, I mean, I don't know if the other guys have got kind of like punchier thoughts than I have, but you read about mold, you read about overcrowding. They seem to be proud of the fact that they've got male and female changing rooms at the moment. It's really damning the PGA.
Every sign points to them being just absolutely skint to me, from tickets, discounts to everything just points to a real cash flow issue there, I think.
You'll probably find the female jockeys in the third biggest restaurant at Cheltenham this time around, the way things are going.
Harry, have you heard of steak.com? Not the steak that you eat with the French Malbec, but in terms of steak as betting stakes. And obviously, I know they're associated with Everton, who are flying high under David Moyes at the moment. Nice bet against Crystal Palace on Saturday. But yeah, in terms of leaving the UK market here, is this a big deal? Are people upset and what's happening?
So I didn't know much about Stake beyond their sponsorship. My understanding is they've taken very few bets in this jurisdiction anyway, and there was someone saying that if you went onto the website, if you ever went onto their website, you couldn't place a bet here anyway. So I don't really know his answer to what they were doing. The slightly extraordinary element of it all was a letter published by the Gambling Commission after Stake. They didn't seem to lose their license, but they seemed to have a discussion in which their license came out of it not being there anymore. Right, the sort of, it was a mutual decision apparently for them to lose their UK license. And anyway, so the Gambling Commission wrote this letter in which they basically seem to stick the crosshairs onto Everton Football Club and say, we expect all these people who sort of use sponsorship not to make sure that they're that they're taking sponsorship from operators who are being properly geo-blocked and all this kind of thing, and you just sort of start thinking, at what point? Isn't this your job? It was quite an extraordinary letter, and Everton seemed to be a slightly unfortunate target, because of course yes, there are clubs that have entered into sponsorship agreements with slightly dodgy outfits licensing wise, but Everton had entered into an agreement with a licensed operator. The license had been removed, and I think Everton were perhaps within their rights to turn around and go, well, wait a minute, we because you licensed them. So it was just a bit of an odd one to sort of turn on Everton in this letter, and it kind of robust terms, suggesting that Everton was now going to be watched very closely as to its sponsorship deal. But who knows what the deal between Everton and Stake was, and whether they've got clauses in there that allow them to get out of sponsorship agreements in circumstances where the license has gone. So you just don't know. But it was a really strange letter. I don't know if anyone else read it, but it was a strange one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I know a bit more about Stake as well, but I probably won't say it on here.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So starting, I don't know if this is like, what's the kind of measurement here? Is this just coming with the terms that basically, because people can't get a bet on because of the restrictions around accounts, that, as you mentioned at the very start of this podcast, the very first episode, AK, that you expect the black market to go through the roof here, 522%.
It's not anywhere near that. Those are very tiny numbers. Like, my opinion on the black market, it's off the charts. Like, it's absolutely off the charts. If
you wanted to have a bet tomorrow, AK, on the black market, would you know where to go? Like, would you know what to do? Would you know who to contact? Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Well, I've got the internet, so it's not that difficult. I'm not going to tell anyone how to do it, because I actually wouldn't recommend it, and I think it's like as the frustrations we all have with the legal market in the UK and Ireland, and some of the frustrations around checks and limits and everything, all the frustrations.
Yeah.
So if you have a bet, you're probably going to get paid out. Like, you definitely will with us if you have a bet with us. So there's so many horror stories about the lads who click something and just don't get paid. I just think it's my thoughts. I think it's if you actually look into where they've derived that number from as well, it's tip of iceberg stuff, in my opinion. It's off the charts, and it's kind of an unsolvable problem. You need to make your legal market through regulation and liquidity more attractive, and I think that's probably the problem we've all got, UK GC and operators in the legal market, that you're just playing whack-a-mole with. You can't stop it. If the Chinese government, everything is monitored, and I have a brother in China for a number of years, they can't stop it. Like, with all the power they have and all the restrictions they have, they can't stop black market gambling. I really wish the UKGC well in these endeavours, but it's a fool's errand for me. We have to make the legal market better than the alternative.
Yeah, it's like everything. It's like cigarettes, like everything. Look at the marijuana market in the States now since they legalized it. It's like it just changes everything. If you sort out the problem in front of you, everything else, I think, kind of goes away. But right, okay. TC, maybe can you run us through the Clonmel situation, please? I kind of skimmed through this last week, but there's a ban for a non-trier, right?
Yeah.
Not too happy about it, and they are appealing the decision here. So what was the basis for the appeal? Do you know?
Well, the horse in question is Mount Ferns, ran at Clonmel on February the 13th, and it ended up with the jockey being suspended for 90 days, trainer getting a £6,000 fine, and the horse can't run for the next 90 days. The jockey was Conor McNamara. So I went back and had a look at the run. Basically,
what was your thoughts on it?
I've had a look at it twice this morning, and I don't think it's as bad as being made out. I mean, I actually had a look in the race, and I actually thought another horse in the race was probably given as equally easy time of it.
90 days is huge for a jockey, TC. Huge.
I mean, Well, I looked at it. I mean, non-tries are just part and parcel of racing, the daily racing. And if you looked at it in the straight, it did look bad. But the trainer's saying it's hanging, the jockey's saying it's unrideable, and but they often say that in these circumstances. I'm sure Harry will. I mean, there was that famous one at Windsor, wasn't he? He became unbalanced and he got away with it. I can't remember the jockey at the time. So they're saying that they say, but you went back and look at it. It did jump poorly. It fell on its previous start over hurdles. This was a novice handicap chase. It did make a couple of errors prior to the straight. It did drag his legs through a couple of the fences, and they did give it an easy time up the straight. But trust me, that is nothing new in a novice handicap chase. So yeah, I thought it was very harsh. I just think stewards are being very selective in what they did. What I would say, go and have a look at a ride of maybe one or two others in that race, and you just say, why are they picking on that particular horse? It didn't look great, but then again, a lot of rides
There's no suggestion of suspicious betting patterns. I don't think is
well,
there.
it's curious because you go on the Racing Post site and there is actually no return prices. It's actually there's no actually betting, and there was betting. So I went and had a look at the Timeform site, and the horse went up at 14-1. But mate, I don't know. Nothing I've read about the case suggests it was a betting related kind of like ban, as it were. There was no betting element to it. I mean, I did hear one case of one at Ayr last week that is on the radar of the authorities. A 7-2 favourite that was pulled up. But we won't go into that now. That might come out in future. But as regards to this specific case, it looked harsh to me because, like I said, you can pick out any number of similar instances on a daily basis.
Yeah. Okay. And then just briefly then, a couple of stories. Number one, Gavin Cromwell has been taking a bit of flack, TC, for horses that, and look, we talked about this with Shark Hanlon a good while ago as well. Horses that are under his trainership that were moved, sold on, and then ended up in pretty desperate states over Dover in this case as well. But people saying, look, how can you guys have a vested interest in a horse, then just lose all responsibility for it? The horse.
I think this is quite harsh about bringing Gavin Cromwell into it. Quite a prominent breeding operation, Dash Grain Stud, actually called him out on X, just saying, there's questions to be asked here, what's happening. Basically, the background to this is World Horse Welfare found 20 horses at Dover in apparently, quote unquote, horrific conditions. 7 of those were Irish thoroughbreds, if you are to believe a mini 1602 account on X. Apparently that's where that 7 Irish thoroughbreds has come from. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. 5 of those 20 found had to be put down immediately. So this is a real bad case. And it hasn't really been played out a lot in the press. But apparently one of the horses was a horse called Superdermo, who ran for Cromwell. But that was back in August. And it's subsequently running 2 points. I don't know who for, subsequent, from August. So grabbing Cromwell into this when you don't know if the horse had even been had left him in summer, I think maybe it would be great if Cromwell had come out and give the background to that horse. But I think calling him out on the evidence available is unfair.
Yeah, and every evidence
there are questions, though, aren't there, Tony? I mean, I think that's not that long ago, August, and I think it is a fair question. If a horse is in that, as to who you sold it to, there must be, or gave it to, some kind of duty on someone in charge of a horse, particularly someone who's making a living out of being in charge of horses. There's got to be an argument that they should be careful about where they say. Obviously, you can only do what's reasonable, and you can't control what the next person does with the horse. But isn't it fair to ask who he sold it to, how he disposed of the horse?
Yeah, that's what Dash Grain Stud have come out and said. It's still on X, so you can go and read it for yourself. They just said, look, there's questions to answer here. But just having a look at it, it ran for Clonmel in August. It's running 2 points. One was quite recently. I think it was December. Whether or not Gavin Cromwell still had an association on that horse. I don't know in its point-to-point runs. I think it would be good if Cromwell came out on the back of these dash.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's as far as you can reasonably go.
That I don't know if they listen now, but that mini account on Twitter is obviously cares a lot about welfare, and I obviously like that and everything. I don't see personally. I never see the benefit of posting anonymously, and then also turning comments off after you let a time bomb off as well. If you're gonna say something, try and put your name behind it and have a discussion about it. I always think, because I love the welfare specific stuff, but I think just time bombing stuff from a non account without comments on isn't just all that bit of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And TC, I knew that if you said to me, what is the worst track in Ireland and the UK for races going off in time? Newmarket, absolutely head and shoulders above the rest. And it drives me mental, particularly when you're watching a busy afternoon and like, they're down at the start, they're all walking around, so start loading, like it's 2 minutes, and they're like 8 or 9 minutes after the race, and then the split screen shite, and it's just infuriating. So Newmarket, name and shame, you need to do a better job.
And there was very, very briefly, there was a best and worst report on punctuality, getting off on time. They classed getting off on time within 2 minutes of the actual scheduled off time, so they gave them quite a bit. They were quite generous in that regard. The best were Taunton, Hamilton, and Hereford. And the worst, and you know this year, is the Newmarket Mile. That even with that 2 minute grace period, they only got 72 of 135 races off on time, which is absolutely shocking. And the two other worst ones are Newbury and Epsom. The common denominator there would be they have to kind of like go all the way down to the start from the paddock areas. So there's a lot of distance travelled to actually get to the start. But it just begs the obvious question is, leave earlier.
I thought you were going to say the common denominator was Southerners then, but...
Well, to be fair to Newmarket staff, most of those late ones, they're probably breathalyzing Oisin Murphy. But apart from that, lads, you just need to get on with it. Like, just get the horses in the stalls on time.
I think people from Newmarket might take offence to the term Southerners.
Yeah. Okay.
It's below Birmingham. If you're below Birmingham, you're in the south for me.
Question time, Harry. You're first up here in the dock. Comrade Lofi Monolulu says, "My question for Harry: what is the validity of legislation against bookmakers when the lotto goes uncensored? Surely pressure on this point may lighten the load upon racing and bookies." Isn't there a big investigation now about the awarding of the contract and license for a lotto at the moment? No? Is it in the UK?
Yeah. There's litigation over the award of it, and the Gambling Commission are involved in that. I think we dealt with this a while back. It's Dirty Desmond, isn't it, suing them for not giving him the lottery, essentially, or not. The process of that they all went through was apparently the wrong process. The lottery has always managed to sort. It is governed by. Sorry, Lotto was obviously. I think that's an Irish question rather than this. So I'm going to answer an English one. The lottery is not governed by the same legislation. It's governed by the Lotteries Act, which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, frankly. So, but it has always managed to slightly avoid the image of gambling, the lottery, and there are a lot of people who would say that is actually, if you're talking about mass introduction of people to gambling, and slightly, brainless gambling, then the lottery might be a pretty central target of that. So yeah, look, it's a fair question.
This is where the bookmaking industry has gone wrong. They should have good causes. We should have give a few quid to a scout hut or something like that, and then we would have got a free pass. I think that's the way it works, isn't it? Despite all the tax revenue we generate and how heavily regulated it is, just should have given them scout huts a few quid.
Yeah.
Isn't that, how did they get away with that?
Troop 49 sponsored by AK Bets.
How do they get away with that? It's crazy. Okay. Next question from Alex Fogarty. This is brilliant. You saw the clip of the bookmakers on the Magnificent Seven during the week. Absolutely class. John McCurrick doing what he absolutely does best. AK, maybe you can take this. Why is racing coverage gone to the dogs? Need another character like John McCurrick more exposure on the betting ring is needed too. Yeah, I don't know. Is that time gone, or can they actually get it back? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I just like watching the old clips. I suppose when I was younger, I used to watch racing coverage. I don't really watch it anymore, to be honest with you. I can't remember the last time I watched ITV racing.
But you just watch me when RT's on, don't you? From my
I do actually. I probably do watch you a little bit more now. Yeah. But I just don't watch it, I suppose, because it doesn't appeal to me. I think it doesn't appeal to me. It's just not a no overriding point there. Just not into it, to be honest with you. So I think back in the day, I think we look at those old Channel 4. I think everybody does. I think you probably want to get it as close to that as you can, whether it's a bygone age and different things are occurring, then it's probably a little bit true as well. But I'm probably not best placed to answer this because I don't watch racing coverage.
Do people get a little bit misty-eyed and rose-tinted about John McCririck? I mean,
no,
you
it was
don't think
unbelievable.
so?
No, I think he was unbelievable. I think when I try and justify him and tell my missus how much I liked him, in like I met him at the Breeders' Cup in about 24. He'd actually just been let go from Channel 4, so whenever that was, he was suing Channel 4 at the time.
That's when he went into Big Brother, wasn't it?
Yeah, around that time. Yeah, around that time, he probably got even more into to generalize the female's consciousness in your family, and he's a tough justification there, I'd say. Definitely, I'd say. But I think from a bookmaker, I remember sat down maybe in my early interest in horse racing, and David Williams from Ladbrokes. It was World Hurdle Day. He's in the studio and he's publicising, as he should, something Ladbrokes are doing. And McCririck just tore him a new one on Channel 4 in the morning. And I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, he's just like saying, that's rubbish and this is why it's rubbish. And I honestly think he was brilliant. I think he was unbelievable at what he did. I can't imagine, you probably know more about this, Hugh, how if something's gone wrong and you have to speak or even not even gone wrong, but you have to speak free flowing on a subject for 5 or 10 minutes on the TV, live on TV, any stumble is picked up on. I think he was brilliant. I genuinely think he was brilliant. And for all his flaws, I think he was brilliant, and we haven't had anyone like him.
But he was, what people forget about, he was basically, it's all about the prep, isn't it? He was the first in the press room. He used to be taking copious notes, talking about market movers. We used to get his wife get Booby to ring out. He rang up all the head offices, find out all the kind of like movers and stuff like that. And it was all about the prep for him. I mean, he was, obviously he was obnoxious in parts, wasn't he? And he wouldn't be allowed to go anywhere near some of the subjects and the language he used back then.
My last memory of him was he sat behind me in the Jim Best proceedings in the BHA in a huge coat and a Make America Great Again hat, baseball cap. His phone went off 4 times during the very tense judgment, and he just behaved completely appallingly. But he was pretty old by that phase. Anyway, so maybe that's why.
I must admit that, Harry, when you said he sat behind me in the gym, I was like,
yes, so did I.
That was
we
the
did
biggest...
not frequent the same gym. No. No, it was in the old dungeon at the BHA where they did all their proceedings, and it was it was the second Jim Best judgment after we'd had to have a rehearing of it, and it was the tensest courtroom of any I've ever been in, and just it wasn't comic relief, sadly. It was just it was very awkward to have McCririck kind of doing that.
Was he like a big punter? Like was he a big punter? Like, did he bet a lot, or was he just into it? It was just the whole.
No, I don't think he did really. But I mean, I know we've got to move. I always remember. Well, actually, I'd forgotten. Funny enough, I'd forgotten that he actually sued Channel 4 for about the
age discrimination. Yeah,
that must.
He lost.
I think he lost.
Well, he lost, but of course, if it was an employment tribunal, you don't tend to pay costs that. Well, I suppose he might have used lawyers, but he did lose.
Okay, move on. Jack Richardson, and this is for anyone really. On Haydock, borderline public health hazard if no taps in the bogs, or indeed no flush. This is the water shortage.
I was getting running commentary from someone at Haydock about basically they lost all water. You couldn't get any water out of the taps. You couldn't flush the toilets, and apparently this went on for about 2 hours during racing at Haydock on Saturday. And I was getting pictures of various staff just taking buckets around all the areas and stuff like that. And like I said, I don't know what the rules are on health and safety these days and stuff like that. But if there's no tap,
I think you have to have water is number one, TC.
Hey?
The water has to come out of the taps is probably number one, like, you know.
But if you've got to flush toilets and stuff like that, it must have been very pleasant.
This reminded me of a year ago. I was in meetings, and important meetings for me anyway, and my missus was away, and the eldest son's creche rung us up and said, "Oh, the pipes have gone. There's no water. You're gonna have to come and pick him up." And my reply was like, "Is there not a shop nearby? Can you not buy water?" I can't get it.
Water,
Yeah.
Sando, last one, and TC can take this. Can we have something on courses failing to update on going regularly? Jesus, TC, this is like your wet dream. There's about 12 whenever it's close to freezing, and half all else, and naff all half the time.
Oh, it does my head in. It's like racing doesn't do the easy wins. Update you're going, it's easy. On Saturday, Haydock, I think they started racing at 1 o'clock. They didn't update their going stick until 11 a.m. on the day. Just not good enough. Just not good enough.
No, it's not. And yeah, I listen, I sympathize with you. Look, guys, thanks. I enjoyed that. And look, again, just all our thoughts are with Michael O'Sullivan's family and everybody connecting. The funeral will be on later on this week, and it'll be huge. But it's just a reminder that life can be really cruel sometimes. And he just reiterate was such a gem of a guy. Rest in peace, Michael O'Sullivan. Thanks to everybody for the show and all the questions as well. We're back next week. Until then, talk to you soon.